One of the top reasons I recommend WordPress is because of its scalability and the level of support with all of the available plugins that will really transform your site into literally anything. This is available through WordPress's endless sea of offered plugins. But with so many available, how do you choose the right one? Well, in this video, we are going to go over how to choose the top plugins for your website. Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Brad Ball, founder of Liquid Digital, and today we are talking about plugins. So before we jump into which plugins you should use, let's first talk about what a plugin is. So real quick, a plugin is basically, think about it like apps on your phone, right? So WordPress is the core of your website and similar to your phone's operating system. And plugins are similar to the apps you install on your phone. So basically you install an app on your phone to add functionality, where you would add in a plugin to your website to add some functionality. The top place to find these WordPress plugins is obviously the WordPress plugin directory. Another place I like to go is ThemeForest. There you can find more premium plugins, and those are typically paid plugins. You can also find paid plugins on the directory. So a lot of times plugins will come either free and have a paid version. So that's very typical of a plugin. So how do you find a plugin that is good? Well, not all plugins are created equal. There are a lot of bad plugins and there are a lot of good plugins. So here are the top things I recommend looking at when deciding on which plugin to choose for your website. The first thing you want to look at is the reviews. So obviously, what are the reviews of this plugin? If it has good reviews or does it have bad reviews, this is going to help you decide whether it's a good plugin or not. The other thing to look at is the number of downloads. So how many times has this plugin been downloaded? So obviously you want a higher number of downloads, meaning more people are using this plugin. You probably don't want to be the first person to use a plugin. And then the last thing to look at is how often is this plugin updated? So it'll tell you the last time it was updated. If it hasn't been updated in 5 years, probably the developer of this plugin is not actively keeping the code up to date. So I would not recommend these plugins. Make sure that it's a plugin that is being actively updated. Usually paid plugins are going to work better and have less compatibility issues. Now, I'm not saying free plugins are bad and paid plugins are good. That's not it at all. A paid plugin, even if they have a paid option, is at least an indication that the plugin developer has a team of developers or is a legitimate plugin developer if they are charging for their plugin. But again, that doesn't mean that the free ones are bad. In fact, probably most of the plugins I use are free. It's just an indicator to let you know if maybe it's a better plugin or not. Okay, so with plugins comes some issues. So what happens when you install these plugins is basically you are installing that plugin code into your website. So now when your website loads, it's going to load the code of that plugin as well. So some of the issues are security issues. A lot of times when sites get hacked, it's because of a plugin, either an outdated plugin or just a bad plugin with bad code. Plugins can leave possible holes in the back end for hackers to get in. So keeping them updated is going to make sure that you are keeping your site secure and with the latest functionality. Also, when you install plugins, it can cause compatibility issues. So plugins have to work together with the other plugins and with the theme. So having multiple plugins installed can cause compatibility issues. Having premium plugins or good plugins, you're going to have a lot less compatibility issues, but you still will run into some. And the one way to handle this is to basically uninstall the plugin and see if that fixes the problem. And then maybe if it does, find another plugin. When people come to me with their website issues, I almost always first go to the plugins and uninstall or deactivate plugins. And that I find will fix the issue, or at least identify where the issue is coming from. Most of the issues come from plugins. The other issue with installing plugins is loading speed. So if you think about it, every time you install a plugin, you're adding more code and more functionality and more things that the site has to do every time it's loaded. The more plugins you have, the more code and the more things that have to happen. So only have the plugins you need installed. So pro tip is to uninstall and delete all of the plugins that are inactive or that you are not using. This is going to make your site run faster, have less compatibility issues, and make it more secure. All right, and on to the plugins that I use on every website in alphabetical order, not in order of importance. And to start with, and I'll probably butcher the name on this, but it's at Kismet Antispam. Basically, it comes default with your WordPress theme, and you highly want it. I highly recommend it. It is going to filter out the spam comments and spam form submissions. You'll basically have to go and get a free API key, connect it to your site, and it'll just start working. The next one is Classic Editor. So years ago, WordPress came out with their new backend editor, and it's called Gutenberg. And it's great. It's really good. I'm old school. I don't use it, and it tends to get in the way. So by installing the Classic Editor, it allows me to not have to deal with the Gutenberg editor, and I'm old school, so I just go with the Classic Editor. Apparently, I'm not the only one because it has millions and millions of downloads. So, all right, the next one is Elementor Pro. And basically, I feel like Elementor is probably the best thing that has happened to WordPress in years. It's a page builder, and it's super versatile and super easy to use. Basically, it's a plugin you install. Once it's installed, it allows you to edit your pages in Elementor, and it brings up a front-end visual editor where you can click and drag and have full control over the look of your site. Super easy to use. I love it, and I recommend it. All right, the next one is one of my personal favorites, and that is Gravity Forms. Installing this plugin is basically going to add in form functionality to your website, such as like contact forms or really any type of form you want. There is a ton of things you can do with these forms. Really, there is no limit to what you can do with these forms. Now, Gravity Forms isn't the only player in the field of WordPress forms. There are a lot of other good ones, but I'm not going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about Gravity Forms because that's the one that I use. That's the one that I recommend. It's a great plugin. There's a ton of features, and as soon as I think that it can't do something, it surprises me with the ability to do it. Along with Gravity Forms, the next plugin is the SendGrid add-on. What I like about this is makes the emails that the forms have to send, it makes them more deliverable, right? So here's what happens without SendGrid. When someone fills out your contact form, your website and server is sending an email on your behalf to you, notifying that someone filled out the form. A lot of times what happens, since an email is sending from your email address on your behalf, a lot of times your web clients will count that as spam or block it, or it'll just kind of get lost out there. So what SendGrid does, it actually is kind of like the middleman. So someone fills out the form, it goes to SendGrid, and then now SendGrid handles the email sending, and it's going to really increase your email deliverability. All right, the next one is iThemes Security, and basically this is just a security plugin. It's going to lock down your site. It's going to make your site more secure. And there are other ones. iThemes is the one that I've always used. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll layer them. So I'll use iThemes Security, and I'll go through the settings and make sure the site's secure. And then I'll use another one called All-in-One WordPress Security. Maybe it's Better Security. I don't remember. But it's All-in-One Security. And that's going to add in maybe some extra levels of security. I don't do that on every site, but I do the iThemes security on every site. And I have some videos and in our course on how to set that up. And if you want to check out our course, it's thewealthywebsite.com. Check it out. All right, the next one I use is Pixel Your Website. So basically what this does is it adds a pixel to your website. Pixels are like your Facebook pixel, Pinterest pixels, or tracking codes, your Google Analytics tracking code, your Google AdWords. So it just adds one plugin that adds in multiple pixels. I like it. It's easy to use, and I recommend it. All right, the next one is Simple. Nope, that's not it. It's Really Simple SSL. So Really Simple SSL is basically going to make sure that your site is running under an SSL certificate. Now, first off, before you install and set up this plugin, you need to make sure that you have an SSL certificate set up and installed on your server. And then you're going to go into your plugins, install this plugin, and it's going to make sure that all of the elements are loading properly through SSL on your website. If you have questions on your SSL certificate, you can always call your hosting or shoot us a message. All right, the next one is Ultimate Add-ons for Elementor. So since I like Elementor, this plugin just adds on some really cool features to Elementor. One of them that I like is the ability to customize and format the look and feel of the Gravity forms. If you're running an e-commerce site, you're going to want this plugin. It's the WooCommerce plugin. Now, there might be some other e-commerce plugins for WordPress, but you know what? I don't even know because they don't matter. WordPress is the recommended e-commerce plugin. Along with WooCommerce, I always install the WooCommerce shipping and tax plugin. Why? Because once you install it and connect it to WordPress.com and get an API key and set that up, super easy to do, by the way, what will happen is it will automatically start calculating the proper tax that you need to charge on your orders. So now you don't have to manually add tax tables because who wants to deal with tax tables? Another one that I use in WooCommerce is the Stripe Gateway. Now, people may not be using Stripe. I always recommend Stripe. It's very similar to like PayPal, but better. And I just use that one. If you're using a different one, they have all different types. I like Stripe. It's very easy to use and dependable. All right, the next one I use is WP Rocket. So this is gonna help speed up your site. It's a caching plugin, and without getting into the details of what caching is, high level, basically what happens is the caching plugin is gonna take a snapshot of your pages. When someone comes and visits your site, it's gonna load up this quick, fast snapshot page versus having to go to the database and load all this PHP code. It's just going to load up this quick page, and then it's going to refresh refresh every so many hours that you set. So that's caching in a nutshell. WP Rocket is the recommended caching plugin. It is not free, but it is worth it. The next plugin that I use a lot is the Yoast Duplicate Post plugin. And this is a really kind of a stupid and simple plugin, but it allows you to clone posts and pages. A lot of times you'll have a page and you just want a page very similar to that and you don't have to go and recreate it all. Or maybe it's a blog post and you don't have to recreate all of the settings. If you use this plugin, it'll give you a little clone option and it'll clone identically everything about that page and post and create a copy of it, and then you just go in and make a few tweaks and you're done. That is the Yoast Duplicate Post. All right, and finally, the last one is the Yoast SEO plugin. Now, there are SEO plugins available. This is probably the most popular one, and it's a tool that's going to allow you to optimize your website for the search engines. Now, what it's not gonna do is you install it and it's just gonna give you fantastic SEO. No, it's a tool that's going to allow you to customize and set up your search engine optimization settings. So, keep that in mind when you install it. It is just a tool, it's not a fix. And because I can't cover all of the plugins that I would recommend, I created a WordPress recommended resource list, and you'll find a link to that in the description below. All right, there you have it. That is how to choose the right plugins for your WordPress site. We'll see you in the next video.